I actually failed my high school pull-up test. So now, to be fair, this was the advanced gym high school pull-up test, but it was only like 10 pull-ups I think we had to do. And yeah, I failed it. I think I only got maybe 6 or 7. I had no idea I was going to fail it because I was working out consistently at the time, but I actually never really did pull-ups. I just did kind of your typical high school bro sesh of bench press and curls and that kind of stuff. And so obviously that affected that test because I did not pass it. And to this date, I can now do 50 unbroken pull-ups. Now I am doing a kipping pull-up when I do that. But with my strict pull-ups, I can do between 25 and 30. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but legitimate strict pull-ups, 25 to 30 of them. That's still pretty good comparing to the 6 or 7 that I did in high school. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about the process of, I think the steps that you need to do. And this really does apply to anyone that's looking to work on their weaknesses. So it doesn't have to be pull-ups. This really applies to everything. So I think the most important thing is to get your general workouts in consistently. So what I mean by that is in CrossFit, we talk about GPP, or general physical preparedness. And that basically is doing a ton of different things, from short workouts that are more like sprints to long workouts that are more endurance, combining things like bodyweight movements, or what we call gymnastics, with cardio, which is any sort of metabolic machine of some sort, whether you're running outside, treadmill, rower, bike, any cardio machine. That's going to be your metabolic conditioning, even jump roping. And then your weightlifting stuff. So anything that involves an external weight to make the exercise harder is considered weightlifting. So intertwining all these different things, different movements, different muscle groups consistently throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. And that's your general physical preparedness, or your general workouts. So you should be getting those in. I've talked about this before, at least 4 days a week consistently, because there's no point of working on your pull-ups if that's all you're going to do. And also, these workouts really carry over to other strengths. So for example, even if this isn't pull-up related, if you were doing different variations of squats, that is going to help your back squat, for example, if you're doing other squatting movements, and vice versa. If you're doing a ton of pulling exercises, that could help your pull-ups, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But so anyways, it's complementing what you're doing when you're working on your weaknesses, and it's building that foundation. Because the other important thing is, if you only work on the thing that you want to get better at, usually you're going to neglect other areas. So by having at least this baseline general workout plan, program consistently, you're not necessarily letting those other areas fall. You're at least keeping a baseline, right? So that's the most important step one, is being consistent with your workouts and getting good variety in those workouts. Okay. Then the next piece is to actually establish where you're currently at. So obviously in high school, I was at that 6 or 7 reps. That was my baseline. So it's important to understand where you're at, because if you don't know where you're at, you don't really know where you're going at the same time. So establishing where you're at, and maybe you don't have any pull-ups. So it's like, how do you measure a benchmark if you don't have any pull-ups? Well, you got to modify. So adding a band to your pull-ups, for example, and being able to do some. So I'm sure you'll pick out one band, whatever thickness it might be, you wrap it around the pull-up bar and use it as assistance, wrap it around your foot or your knee or however you're doing it. And maybe you get 6 to 10 reps, whatever it might be, whatever that number is. That's your benchmark. And when you retest with that same benchmark that you did the first time. So that way you have a way to see if you're getting better. It's clear, cut, and dry. That's how you're going to do it. Now, eventually, if you're, getting better and better and better at the banded pull-ups, occasionally, obviously, you can retest anytime you want to try and see if you can get that one strict pull-up in. So that's very important to understand where you're at currently. Okay, so once you have that, now it's time to consistently do a variation of pull-ups. So there's so many different ways to get better. But I will say this, I'll tell you a little story. Several years ago, it's probably going on 6 years now, I hurt my back pretty good. I wasn't being smart. I thought I was young and invincible. And even though I knew my form was suffering, I was doing deadlifts at the time. I just kept going. even though my back was hurting, I kept going. And the next morning I woke up and could not move. And that carried on to several years of constantly re-aggravating that same injury. It ended up being like a bulging disc, which I've gotten past since then, but I'm a lot smarter with the way I'm doing things now. You live and you learn, I guess. So if that's you, by the way, don't live and learn, just learn from my mistake and make sure your form's there before you're adding weight. Anyways, when I hurt my back, I basically couldn't do much. And I was always the type of person that worked out 5, 6, sometimes even 7 days a week at the time. And I just couldn't stand not doing anything. So I figured out any way possible, one, to heal this back up as quickly as I can and get back to it. But two, like, what could I do in the meantime that would kind of fill that space where I would normally work out? So I was actually able to do bench press. This wasn't immediately, but once my back healed enough, and I literally just started doing it 2 to 3 days a week because that was one of the only things that I could do. But the amazing part about this was that I actually increased my bench press dramatically. Like I was always consistently right around one specific max weight, doing it once every other week or that kind of thing. Not even that, probably. But, generally in the programming, we would do it. But I definitely wasn't doing it any more than once a week. It was probably more like once every 3 weeks, once a month, that kind of thing. But then I went up to 2 to 3 days a week. Now, because I was doing this so often, I was just doing different rep schemes, different weights, different as much as possible. I was even doing tempo training. So my point is, you just want to get volume in as many different ways, shapes, and forms. So, for example, maybe we have pull-ups, one option you could do, let's just say you're only at 5 pull-ups. Well, if you kept working on just 5 pull-ups at a time, that's not that much volume. It's more like you're testing kind of where you're at. So what you could do is scale down to a band. And now you're going 10, 15, 20 reps in a row for multiple sets. And that's a different stimulus because it's almost like a lighter weight, right? You're not using weight, you're using your own body weight, but that would kind of be comparing it if you were doing some weightlifting movement. It's a lighter load, right? So you're doing more reps. That's a little easier, but now you're getting that volume in. But at the same time, the next week, you might work on those strict pull-ups without a band. You might do some ring rows. You might do any other variation of pulling exercises. And that's kind of what's going to consistently get you better at this. The number of times I've heard of members asking or telling me I can't do this or I can't do that or I'm not good at that or whatever. You understand what I'm getting at. The point is, I always ask them, well, when was the last time you worked on it outside of a workout? And usually the answer is, I don't remember, or it's been a while, or once every once in a while. It's just not consistently enough. And that's the point, right? So you need to be on something consistent. And at the very least, it's going to be once a week outside of your workouts, right? So if you're doing your general physical preparedness, your general workouts where you get all this different variety in, at some point, you're probably doing some variation of a pull-up or pulling exercise. So you're getting that work in, yes, in your workouts, but you should at least be doing one extra work to specifically focus on that area of weakness that you're trying to get better at. And I'd say at least once a week, because like I said, if you're feeling good, you could do twice a week. You go 2-3 times a week. It also depends on how you're feeling that week throughout the workouts. Maybe you did do a workout that was a crazy amount of pulling or something and you're sore. So you don't necessarily need to do 2 or 3 extra days of pulling exercises if you're kind of sore for several days out of the week from the workout. So it really just depends on how you're feeling that week as well. And you can kind of just play it by ear, but at least have a game plan of at least once a week, if not twice. And if you're feeling good, even 3 times. So that's how you're going to get better. And you got to understand, again, this is not something that's going to happen in 4 weeks. Okay. It is something that you're going to need to consistently work on, whatever that weakness is. And it's important to keep attacking and keep working on and understand this is a lifestyle change overall. And it's something that's going to take time. So consistently working at that is the key to success with this. Now, another hopefully obvious point is if you're trying to get better at pull-ups, you got to remember there's no weight attached other than your body weight. So if you are a little bit carrying on a little bit extra weight, if you lean out and you're less weight, I'll tell you what, it's gonna get easier. Maybe some of you experienced this. Like if you already had pull-ups down and then you lost 5 pounds or 10 pounds throughout a stint of time, and then you're doing pull-ups again, you realize, oh my gosh, this is a lot easier. I'm not carrying this extra 10 pounds. And if you have pull-ups right now and you have a 10-pound weight, throw it on, try some pull-ups and see how much harder that is with just that extra 10 pounds or 20 or whatever you're trying to lose, and understand that, man, if I just lost a little bit of weight, it's going to make a huge difference in how many pull-ups I'm going to be able to do. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Not only you got to be consistent, obviously you need to have your weight in mind. And you need to retest consistently. Okay. Retest consistently. That's super important. So anyways, I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.